So hello everyone, welcome to Sunya IAS. Now this is your lecture specifically for prelims examination, as you must be knowing, and we are going to discuss the period between 1927 and 1939. Okay, so this is the part of your ongoing series of prelims crash course modern history. Okay, so let's begin. This is a chapter number 8. I hope you are in the sync of other the ongoing classes, and let's begin with the chapter number 8. What exactly we are going to look in this lecture? So in the previous lectures we have discussed in great detail of how civil disobedience movement happened, and how immediately after civil disobedience movement we saw a period of lull. Even though Swarajist faction was formed, a no changer faction was also formed. Gandhi was arrested, Gandhi was released from jail, but a sense of lull, a basic idea that okay, not much was happening on the political level, that was certain. And in a way, the Britishers were able to maintain a standard streamlined system of administration. So that was a thing going on somewhere like 1925, 1926, that period. Okay. But something happened in 1927 which totally transformed this thing, and that led to this period being called as the second phase, the second phase of the mass satyagraha. Okay, the second phase of the mass satyagraha or mass struggle in India. What was the first phase? We have discussed in the previous lectures. The first phase was the period of 1905 to 1908, 1909. That is when Swadeshi and boycott movement started, and that is something we have looked already in the chapter number 5 and chapter number 6. Okay, so let's proceed. Let's discuss about this particular section, what we are going to cover. So we are going to start it from Simon Commission, and basically the commission which came in 1927. Don't worry, we'll cover this and you will understand if you don't know what Simon Commission is. We'll also be looking into demand of Poorna Swaraj, causes, consequences, both the thing, round table conference, Dandi March, civil disobedience movement, the causes and consequences of civil disobedience movement. I will tell you, okay, in the last of that, but prelims specifically, there are specific things which will be asked, and I'll be telling you what exactly has to be remembered. Pune Pact, Government of India Act 1935, some specific details of the Government of India Act GOI 1935, which are very essential for your preliminary examination in 2023. So we'll be discussing that. We'll also be discussing the FAS4 agrarian program of 1936. I can't tell you more that how much FAS4 is important. Okay, the decisions which were taken in FAS4, the resolution which was passed in FAS4 ultimately impacts the farmers even in 2022, 2023. Okay, you have to know this. So FAS4 is very essential. It hasn't been asked, and I really don't know why it hasn't been asked yet, but believe it, it could be in 2023, 2024, whenever you're gonna go give the examination, a question from FAS4 is right there to come. So we'll focus on that also. We'll talk about the Indian provincial elections of 1937, what happened in there, and the Vardha education scheme. We'll try to wrap it up as soon as possible, and we'll also see the previous year questions which came. Okay, so we'll also talk about the PYQs specific to these chapters. Okay, so let's begin. Let's start with the very first thing, and that is the Simon Commission. Now in front of you it's a chronological diagram which shows that what happened after what, and if you have seen the PYQs, the previous year questions, even once, you know that a proper question can be attributed to this diagram itself. They can ask you directly, very directly in the examination, that look, can you just place these happenings, these things in order of happening. That itself is a very good question which can easily come in the examination. So that itself is a question that okay, Government of India Act 1919 was passed, Simon Commission, how it is rated to it, boycott of Indian boycott of the Simon Commission by Indian leaders, then subsequently the Nehru Commission report came in. All those things we have to discuss. So let's begin. Let me start with telling you a bit of a story that what led to this whole chronology, and I'll tell you the whole story, and then I'll come back to this very slide and we'll tell you what really happened. Let's start with the very basic thing, that is the Government of India Act 1919. So let's go a bit back, even before the non-cooperation movement. Okay, Government of India Act 1919. This is the act which was brought on the recommendation of Montagu-Chelmsford reform, that is also called as Montfort reform. You might have been remembering from our previous discussion that this was the act which made bicameral legislation a part of Indian system. Okay, a separate body, a central legislative assembly was formed, which then later on is basically a precursor to the Lok Sabha, and a council of state, which is the precursor of the Raj Sabha, was formed in 1919, and a lot of other changes also happened. But beyond that, since Indian leaders were not impressed by what Montagu and Chelmsford has recommended, or by what Baldwin government, the British government then has done, Stanley Baldwin, or the Prime Minister of Britain back then, said one more thing in the very ending phases of the Government of India Act 1919, that after 10 years, and he said after 10 years, that is a decade later, a constitution reform committee, a constitution reform commission will be formed to look into the issues which will be there in the Government of India Act 1919. So the Prime Minister of Britain had stated कि अभी आप ये एक्ट ले लो, 10 साल बाद अगर ये एक्ट में कोई इशू होंगे हम उसको रिजॉल्व कर देंगे, to at least calm down the immediate rejection by the Congress leadership and other parties leadership also. Okay, so by that go, Government of India Act 1919, 10 years in 1929. But what happened? In 1927 itself, the British government was in a difficult situation. In 1927, the Tory party, which is the conservative faction in Britain, the Tory party understood it well enough that they are not going to win the upcoming elections, which were mandated to happen in 1929 only. So they knew that they will lose the election. And if they already knew they will lose the election, they thought that who will win? So they knew the liberal faction will come to power. And the conservative faction was not ready to let the liberal faction decide the future course of relationship between India and Britain. So what they did? 2 years in advance, in 1927 itself, Stanley Baldwin, the then Prime Minister of Britain, appointed a commission. He appointed a commission, and the Baldwin appointed a 7-member commission. Okay, these people were member of parliaments also. On it, the commission was headed by a man whose name was John Simon. Okay, yeah, John Simon. He himself was a lawyer, a pretty famous lawyer in Britain. And this commission was called as Simon Commission. It was a constitutional reform commission for India. The problem was this 7-member committee. This 7-member committee was consisting of only and only Britishers. This 7-member committee had 7 members, and all 7 of them were Britishers. Okay. Now, Indian Constitutional Development Committee. So if you are making a note or something, you can just note it down, and this is preliminary oriented, pretty important for you. Just make a note of this point, that Simon Commission is officially known as Indian Constitutional Development Committee. Indian Constitutional Development Committee. Now understand this, how the question will be asked. In the examination, what they will do, they will say that which of the following committee, okay, which of the following committee was formed, which of the following committee was formed to bring the desired changes in the Government of India Act 1919, and then they will write the name of this committee. And you will think that maximum you will do this, that you will remember that Simon Commission has brought changes, but you will not read this name, and because of that you will mark a wrong option. Okay, so understand these things, this is how they play. Fine. Now the next thing, so the commission was formed. Okay, the 1927 it was decided that in January 1928 the commission will land where? It will initially come by boat or ship to Bombay, and then they will go to rest of India on other parts. The problem is, immediately the Indian leadership felt threatened, they felt frustrated. Why they felt frustrated? Understand people, even after Treaty of Versailles, no, even in the after First World War, in Treaty of Versailles, there were Indian representation. There were the representative of princely states were there. The leader, the ruler of Bikaner, the ruler of Patiala were there even in the Treaty of Versailles. Their opinion didn't matter much in those discussions, but they were there on the seat in 1917. Now a decade later, in 1927-1928, Britishers are forming a new set of constitution for us, and they are not even considering Indian opinion. अरे भाई, आपके लिए कोई रूल बनाएगा और आपसे पूछेगा भी नहीं तो दिक्कत होगी कि नहीं होगी? If a set of guidelines are going to be framed for you, this is how you have to behave in your upcoming life, and no one is even bothered to ask you or take your opinion, won't you be upset? That was the issue. So not only Congress, but most of the leadership were upset by the Simon Commission, although everyone was not capable enough to retaliate, or everyone had their prejudices. Congress outrightly, in December 1927 session of Congress declared that they are going to oppose Simon Commission. Okay, they are going to oppose Simon Commission. So this is, again, you need to remember, in Madras session of 1927, under leadership of M.A. Ansari, Congress decided to reject the incoming Simon Commission. Fine. So this was decided here. Okay, got it? Now what next? So in January they came. Congress, whichever city they went, the Congress started opposing them. Now this action of Congress and few other organizations were also active in this, ended, first of all, the lull which has been created after the end of the non-cooperation movement. So the lull from the side of the Indian revolutionaries or Indian freedom fighters after 1928 to 1922 ended with the start of the opposition to Simon Commission. Fine. The biggest incident immediately happened when Lala Lajpat Rai, okay, it is said, yeah, that February 1950, they had to come to in January 1928, but they landed up in Bombay in February 1928, and by, it is said, by October they went to, the Simon Commission went to Lahore. And when they landed up, or they deboarded the train in Lahore railway station, Lala Lajpat Rai was there outside the railway station opposing them, and that is the place where the famous slogan "Simon go back" was chanted. Okay. Along with Lala Lajpat Rai, there were also student or youth leaders from the Punjab Naujawan Sangh. Fine. This is the organization where Bhagat Singh and Sukhdev were active before joining HSRA, or even they had joined the HSRA, but HSRA was a militant outfit. It was an underground outfit even in that time. So outside in public view, they were associated with this organization. Or Sangh, it was called as Sabha. Punjab Naujawan Sabha. Okay. Lathi charge took place. Okay. One of the officers caught lathi charge on Lalaji. Lalaji fell on the ground, and 10 days down the line he died. This incident led to the youth leaders like Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev. These people decided to retaliate, and as an action of revenge, they decided to kill the officer, that is Scott. But by mistake, at that day, by mistake, instead of Scott, Saunders came in front of them. Assistant Commissioner. Okay. Assistant, not Assistant Commissioner, Assistant Superintendent of Police, Lahore. Saunders was a young chap. Now you have a pistol in front of you. Something has to be done. They fired. Saunders was killed, and was considered. This particular case is called as Lahore conspiracy case. Understand this thing. There are other cases also which are called as Lahore conspiracy case. There is not one Lahore conspiracy. There are many Lahore conspiracies which have taken place in Lahore. Although this one is also called as Lahore conspiracy case, and it was during this case only, for this particular incident only, Bhagat Singh, Rajguru and Sukhdev were executed in March 1931. So this has to be remembered, that this is connected from here. Now this is a crash course, so I'm not going to go on each and specific thing in too much deep dive, but I'm just immediately telling you what is remembered, what has to be remembered, and how it has to be remembered. So this is something on the one side, just for the information thing. But at the same time, with the Simon Commission was opposed by Congress. But you have to remember, for prelim specific nature, that who are the people who were actually ready to meet Simon Commission, or who had met or made representation in front of the Simon Commission. Obviously, Simon Commission had invited all the factions, all the leaders, all the organizations in India, and Simon Commission wanted them to make a representation. Simon Commission said, okay, fine, you come with your issues and we'll listen to you, and then we'll recommend what has to be done in India. So Congress has already rejected this, but there were others who went and met him. Who are these people? You have to know them. So a faction of Muslim League. Okay. Muhammad Ali Jinnah rejected, okay, Simon Commission, but another faction of Muslim League went and met him. Now that's first. Then Hindu Mahasabha. Made a representation in front of Simon Commission. Fine. Then Central Sikh League made a representation. Tej Bahadur Sapru and other leaders, okay, they made a representation. And then leaders and other, B.R. Ambedkar made a representation. Specifically, you need to mention or remember. Although Ambedkar's reasons were very different, Ambedkar was not given much importance at the time by Congress, and he had no other way to highlight the plight, highlight the exploitative behavior, okay, highlight the plight of the depressed classes, highlight the exploitative behavior of the so-called upper caste. Now, so this much is done. So this is something, this is separately needed to be remembered. If you want to take a screenshot, or if you want to just write it down, please pause the screen and write this down. I'll just get out of the screen. Now, I hope you have paused the screen in the meantime. Let's move forward. Now, understand this part. that so this is just one section. When Simon Commission finally submitted its report, so it is said that finally in May 1930, after having all these meetings and everything, Simon Commission in May 1930 submitted its report. Okay, it was a 2-volume report. Fine. You also need to remember that what were the recommendations. So there are few recommendations which I'll just tell you like that. That Simon Commission, the abolition of diarchy and the establishment of representative government. The diarchy, which was introduced in 1919, okay, so they wanted the diarchy to be abolished in the states, fine, and they also wanted the representative government in the provinces. They also said that there has to be some special provisions made so that under the difficult most circumstances the viceroy can take a decision on his own. They also said that there should be certain reservations. Through these reservations, the viceroy should have some commanding authorities on what rules and regulations are going to be made for the minorities, because otherwise, since it's going to be electoral process, majoritarianism, that is the way of majority, will be implemented on day-to-day affairs. So these were some of the recommendations. Okay, they also recommended that there should be a totally segregation of Burma from the Indian crown, British India, and Burma should be made a separate crown colony. Okay, now they also recommended, and this is something you have to remember, that one of the most important recommendation of Simon Commission, that they only recommended that for the Council of State, okay, for the Council of State, what is Council of State? The Council of State of 1920s is the precursor body, of our Rajya Sabha. Okay, so it was decided that Council of State, in the Council of State, for the election process of the candidates of Council of State, it was decided that what will be used? Proportional representation. Now this makes a question of its own, that when was proportional representation first introduced in India? Just like it has been asked in the past, that when was the ordinance making power was first introduced in India, and the answer is that it was introduced in 1861 through the Indian Council Act. Similarly, if someone asks you who introduced and when it was introduced, what? The proportional representation, which is now even mandated for the process of election of Rajya Sabha. It was first recommended by Simon Commission, and it was actually first implemented in Government of India Act 1935. Got it? Chalo ji. Let's move forward. Okay, so where we have reached? So we have reached about the Simon Commission and some basic recommendations of Simon Commission. I have told you in advance itself. Okay, but this is what was happening from the perspective of the Britishers. This is all Britishers were doing. Okay, Simon Commission was formed, Simon Commission was sent, and whether Indian liked it or not, Simon Commission was able to submit its report in 1930 to the British government for bringing the changes in Indian constitution. But in this 2 years of period, the Indians were very upset, and a lot was done on the Indian side. So what we have discussed already, that in December 1927 Madras session, Congress decided to oppose it, the Simon Commission. When Congress decided to oppose the Simon Commission, the then Secretary of State for India, okay, the then Secretary of State for India, whose name was Lord Birkenhead, okay, his actual name was F.E. Smith. So you don't know what name can be used, but Lord Birkenhead. So Lord Birkenhead actually made a statement in the British press that why even we bother to take our opinion of these folks. These people are worthy for nothing, and these are incapable people. They don't have the capability to come to a consensus, And if these people are incapable to come to a consensus on their own, why even we bother to take their opinion? Fine, he made that statement. Now, this is something which was taken on a very, like, this Indian leaders actually thought that this is not something, this could not be the reason. And they said, like, okay, fine. If this is a thing, then we consider it as a challenge. And all leaders of almost all the parties decided that we have to come on a single page. We have to come on a single page. And we have to show Lord Birkenhead, and through Lord Birkenhead, the British government and the British Parliament, that we are, not only we are capable of coming to a consensus, but we are capable enough to make a constitution, working constitution for India without getting any support or help from the British colonial masters. So now what happened? It was decided that a meeting, the all party meeting, will be called in Calcutta. It was decided that in initial months of 1928, an all party meeting will be called in Calcutta. Okay. Before this meeting could have been called in, another meeting took place in Delhi. Okay. So prior to this Calcutta meeting, Muslim League leaders met because Congress wanted to reach a consensus about how Indian constitution should be with Muslim League, because these were the two factions mainly. Everyone have their opinion, fine, but these were the major factions. So Congress understood that if we can get our issues resolved with Muslim League, everything is sorted. Good, great, excellent. So Muslim League met in Delhi. Here, under the leadership of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, M.A. Jinnah, Muslim League came up with 4 points. They said that if Congress accepts these four demands, if Congress accepts these 4 demands of ours, then we don't have any issue. You accept these 4 demands of ours, and we will be a party to this committee, because it was decided that the committee will be formed of Indians to make a constitution. Okay. Okay. So you need to know what these 4 demands were. So this was a proposal by Muhammad Ali Jinnah on the behalf of Muslim League, and therefore it is called as Jinnah's 4-point proposal, or it is also known as Delhi proposal. Okay. Now what Jinnah stated? What were the demands? The demands were okay. The demands were that they said, okay, fine, we don't want separate electorates. We have discussed it in past lectures. He said that, okay, fine, the separate electorates we were discussing about in which the Muslims have got back in Indian Council Act 1909. We don't want it. Okay, we will let go of the separate electorates. We will accept the joint electorate idea. That is the idea that there will be a single seat on which Hindus and Muslims and everyone can contest. There will be no segregation. There will be no reservation of the electorates. There will be no reservation of the people who are voting. क्या होता है अभी? Everyone, I'm explaining this again because people get confused again and again between separate electorates and joint electorates. So what we have in Indian Parliament, we have reservations. Surely we have reservation for SC community and ST community in Indian Parliament. Many a time you must have heard कि ये वाली MLA की सीट और ये वाली MP की सीट जो है ये रिजर्व कर दी गई है, ठीक है, इस पे कोई SC या ST कैंडिडेट होगा. So in the election the candidature is reserved, but the voters, the electorate is the same. Fine. In separate electorates, the system has been devised such that the Muslims will vote for a Muslim candidate, the Sikh will vote for a Sikh candidate, and that was separate electorate. Now, we have already discussed this in Indian Council Act 1909 in previous lectures. I'm just reminding you that this thing was available to the Muslim community from 1909, and this is something even though Congress has accepted in 1916 during Lucknow Pact, but still somehow the ground worker of Congress didn't like it. So Jinnah stated that fine, we will let go of separate electorate and we will join joint electorate, but in return 3 things have to be done. First of all, there has to be 1/3 reservation, 1/3 reservation to the Muslim community. There has to be 1/3 reservation to the Muslim community in the Central Legislative Assembly, that is equivalent to or the precursor of what we have now as Lok Sabha. Then he went on to say that representation of Muslims in all the provinces everywhere has to be in the ratio of their population in those provinces, even in those provinces where they are in majority. So basically अभी क्या होता है, अभी अगर एक जनरल थियोरेटिकल सेंस में भी देखा जाए, if you look in a theoretical sense, who gets reservation? Those who are lacking in some point, those who are oppressed, historically oppressed, those get reservation. So आप कभी सुनते हो मेजॉरिटी को रिजर्वेशन मिल रहा है? नहीं. Wherever minorities को रिजर्वेशन मिलता है, not only religious minority, language wise, religion, okay, any other kind of minority, reservation is given to women. In many of places reservations are given for women because it has been accepted principle throughout the globe that women have been historically exploited, okay, or muzzled in a patriarchal society. So now they are getting reservation. Now Jinnah was demanding that wherever the Muslims were in minority you give them reservation there. That is totally acceptable also. Suppose at in some province there is a 10% reservation, 10% population of Muslims, you give them 10% seat reservation in the legislative assembly of that province, provincial legislative assembly. But he demanded that every province, and there were 2 specific provinces and 2 very capable provinces, the province of Punjab and the province of Bengal. In both these provinces Muslims had a majority, okay, in both these provinces Muslim majority existed, and Jinnah demanded that even though the Muslims had majority in Punjab and Bengal, they should be given the reservation. So what it will mean? It will mean that there will always be a party in power in these provinces which will take care of Muslim lobby. That is somewhat unacceptable, but ठीक है, that was his demand. That is what he demanded in return of letting go of separate electorates. Then this was the then beyond this he said this was the second demand, and the third demand was, the third demand of his, or fourth demand, not third, fourth demand of his was the province of Sindh, the province of there should be a new province Sindh by bifurcating the Bombay presidency. So back then Karachi and Hyderabad, the Hyderabad and Sindh province of Pakistan right now, all those areas were part of Bombay presidency. So he said that there should be a separate province Sindh. Similarly, he demanded that the already Northwest Frontier province was created by Lord Curzon in 1899, but he demanded that the status of Northwest Frontier province should be increased, and Northwest Frontier province, and he said Northwest Frontier province and Balochistan should be given the proper provincial status on the lines of other states like United Province, like Madras, like Bengal, and Sindh should be separated. He said that if all these 4 points are accepted, then he will be happy, more than happy, to join the All India conference which is getting gathered in Calcutta, and if that All India conference will try to formulate a constitution, he will support it. Good, great. Since he was letting go of joint electorate, Congress said, अच्छा ठीक है कर देते. Congress said what? Fine, we'll accept all other demands of yours. But then So he attended the, or Muslim League attended the All India All Party meeting in Calcutta, and this all party meeting constituted a new committee that was called as, that was under the leadership of Motilal Nehru. Okay, all party conference, committee of chairman of subcommittee of all party conference. Okay, it was called as Motilal Nehru committee. Nehru committee, in the name of Motilal Nehru, the very famous lawyer, a very big leader of Congress and capable enough to frame the constitution. But this committee, Motilal Nehru committee, included in total 9 members. And then they were given a mandate to frame a constitution, a new constitution for India. Frame a new constitution for India. Okay? What prelims specifically you need to know, here people get confused. People always think, students, aspirants always think that Nehru committee was a committee formed by Congress. No. Nehru committee was a committee formed by All India Conference. Okay, where all parties participated. It was an All India All Party Conference. Okay. Now, what otherwise you also need to know that beyond Motilal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Tej Bahadur Sapru, okay, Ali Imam, all these people were also members of Nehru committee. Fine. Later on, Subhash Chandra Bose along with Jawaharlal Nehru will go on to oppose the recommendations, but right now understand that he was also a member. Fine. Chaliye. So what happened after this? The committee started working. They started framing the constitution for India. They framed a constitution for India. And they defined specific goals for or they defined what, if as per them constitution should be framed, what all the perks, what are the rights and duties for the Indian people. They defined all those things. Obviously we are not going to go in each and everything, but some things you need to remember for prelims purposes again. And that is, for example, he said that India should be given a dominion status. India should be given a dominion status on the lines of Canada, on the lines of New Zealand, on the lines of Australia, on the lines of Ireland. Irish had also got their autonomy. Irish have also got their dominion status in 1922 only. Okay. So they said that on these countries, India should also get the dominion status. What they meant by dominion status is that there should be a there should be a viceroy. He should be he should be an appointee of the King of Britain, but he will not have a say in day-to-day affairs. Just like in 21st century, the President of India, beyond a point, cannot question the decisions taken by the Indian Parliament and Indian government. Similarly, they wanted to keep the office of the Governor General, they called him. Fine. Now, one more, 2 things important, that everything else was accepted, and the Nehru committee went on to define fundamental rights for the Indian people, which was an excellent thing because no one else did that. The one thing you need to know beyond the issue with the Muslim League, for which Nehru committee report is known, is something that Nehru committee didn't framed. Okay, Nehru committee didn't framed a federalist constitution. Federalist constitution. And the Nehru committee reports or Nehru committee report recommendation were based on a centralist approach. That is, center union government has more power. Why it did so? Understand this thing in the examination. This can happen with you because in a generic sense we know that federalism is good for a country. We have this perception, a liberal outview, that federalism is ultimately good for country. So usually people think Nehru Committee report तो हमारे फायदे की चीज थी. So there is the option that federalism was suggested by Nehru Committee, तो right हो जाता है. The Nehru Committee actually recommended a centrist approach for the working of the government. So all these things were fine. This was not a issue with the Muhammad Ali Jinnah or Muslim League. The problem came in that initially all party conference, for entry of Muslim League in all party conference, it was decided that Delhi proposal will be accepted, but ultimately when you will see finally Nehru Committee recommendation didn't followed on one of the points of Delhi proposal, and that was exactly what you are thinking, that is reservation to Muslim community, reservation to Muslim community in the province of, in the Provincial Legislative Assembly of Bengal and Punjab. Boom, all gone. Whatever expectation was there to make a consensus among the Indian leaders ended at this point. At this point you will see that Jinnah will take back his support from the all party conference and never accepted the recommendations of Nehru Committee. He then went on to give his 14 points demand. Initially he gave a Delhi proposal, 4-point demand. Now he will give 14-point demand. Now if one is giving a UPSC CSE examination in India, you don't really have to go to the details of the 14-point formula or 14 points demand of Jinnah. Although if there is some student who is giving CSS examination, which is the equivalent examination of CSE in Pakistan, then you will be given a lot more importance on this paper, this section. But anyway, that is not the case. So in this, then he demanded again the separate electorates. He said that uniform measure of autonomy has to be guaranteed to all the provinces where Muslim majority is there. And there were many other pointers which he explained that it should be there, the reservation for Muslims even in government jobs he demanded. And then he went on to demand things, he stated that which are necessary for protection of the Muslim community in a majoritarian state. Okay. He also then gave his separate listing to the Simon Commission कि हम ये 14 डिमांड मांग रहे हैं, चलो कोई Simon Commission. अब तो there was no consensus first of all. So in a way what Lord Birkenhead stated proved to be correct. Fine. Then what? Differentiate between Nehru report and Simon Commission report. This happens a lot. This has to be remembered. This can be asked in the examination. We took a lot of time for this section because a lot of student gets confused between the Delhi proposal, Nehru Committee report or Nehru Committee recommendations, and then subsequently the 14-point formula or 14-point demands of Jinnah. Now you also need to know the difference between Nehru Committee report and the Simon Commission report. So Nehru Committee submitted its recommendation in 1928. The recommendation first one was dominion status should be given. Simon Commission never talked about any dominion status. So that's the first difference. Then Nehru Committee talked about joint electorates. Simon Commission was totally okay with the separate electorate which was given by the British government in 1909 itself. Second difference. Then Simon Commission has no mention of any fundamental right. Nehru Committee outrightly stated that these are the following fundamental rights which will be given to Indian people. Okay. So Nehru Committee report was submitted to Congress, and the Congress session in December 1927, M.A. Ansari was the president. In December 1928 session, the president was again Motilal Nehru only, the same person who led this committee. And in this committee, in this particular meeting, it was decided that they will give 1 year period. They will give 1 year period for the British government to implement the recommendations of the Nehru Committee. And if they will not do so, then the Congress will be free to take action. Congress will be free to take action, and it was also said that they will do something even beyond the non-cooperation. So they reminded the government, or they reminded the then Viceroy Lord Irwin, that what happened with Lord Reading, the then governor, the then Viceroy of 1920 now, 1922, something very bad is going to happen with you. So fine, he said fine, okay. The immediate reaction was not very different. But now what happened in between this period? In 1929 only, the election, which I told you in the very starting of the class, that there was a election due for the British democracy in 1929. So that election took place, and a more liberal leader, Ramsay MacDonald, came to power. Ramsay MacDonald, who was a liberal leader, who was not from the Tory party, he came to power. Now Ramsay MacDonald, he also got to know that the Congress had stated that, they have stated in December 1928 that if you don't implement these demands by December 1929, then we are going to take action. So what Ramsay MacDonald did? He immediately called the Viceroy to London in October 1929, 2 months in advance, and told him that you go back and tell these people, that Dominion status down the line will be given to you, don't worry. And this is famously called as the Irwin Declaration. I don't know whether it is mentioned here or not, but yeah. So in October 31st, 1929, Irwin came back to India, and he declared that in view of the doubts expressed by both in Great Britain and in India regarding the interpretation to be placed on the intention of the British government in enacting the Statute of 1919, I am authorized on the behalf of His Majesty's government to state clearly that their judgment, it is implicit in the Declaration of the 1917, the natural issue of India's constitutional progress as they are contemplated is the attainment of Dominion status. ठीक है? He is saying that ये तो 1917 से ही हम कह रहे हैं कि हम आपको Dominion status दे देंगे. Problem पता है क्या थी? The problem was that ये नहीं बता रहे थे कब देंगे. They were not ready to tell Indians that when this Dominion status will be given. We'll give you a Dominion status. कब? वो तो बताओ. So they were not interested in that. They were not doing it, and that is the main problem. Now, so since date नहीं बताई, because the date was not told, okay, Congress said फर्जी बातें हैं सब. Okay, all this is no use to us. This doesn't make any sense. Ramsay MacDonald did one more thing. Ramsay MacDonald said that look, Ramsay MacDonald said that I personally had no quarrel in including the Indian members in Simon Commission. He was like, look, I was not in government back in 1927 when the commission was formed, so don't blame me. He was like, look, but the thing is that the commission report has been formed, so I cannot change the Simon Commission's recommendation. So he said, let's do one thing. Ramsay MacDonald said that the British government has the recommendation of Simon Commission. Okay. Okay, he said that we have the Simon Commission recommendations. He said we also have the Nehru Committee recommendation. He said we also have the Nehru Committee recommendation. Okay. He said we also have the 14-point demand of Jinnah. We have all this thing with us. So he was like, you do, all the Indian leaders, you do one thing. You come to London We'll sit down and we'll discuss. What point has to be taken from where? We'll do it, we'll discuss. But the Indian leaders, the Congress leaders were also saying that look, ये सब चीजें तो ठीक हैं, ये सब नहीं, अब हमें dominion status दोगे कि नहीं और कब दोगे वो बताओ. We are not interested in these things, okay? Because the whole of Simon Commission report has been rejected by us. We are not interested in imbibing any points from those. But he was saying that you people come to London and I'll organize a meeting. That was first round table conference. He was like, we'll organize this. No one was interested. Congress outrightly rejected that no roundtable conference, no more discussions. We have given you an ultimatum for December 1929. So that has to be implemented. Fine. So that you have to keep in mind. Now, after this, what happened? After this, you will see that in a minute. Yeah. So that is one section. Between this period, in December 1929, when the recommendations were not followed, Gandhi ji was given a free hand to do whatever he wanted. And how he was given a free hand? Understand this part. So in December 1928, Motilal Nehru was the president. In the December 1928 session, Motilal Nehru was the president. In December 1929 session, this was organized in Calcutta. And if I am writing something, this is important for prelims. Okay, this was 1929. So this was organized in Lahore. In December 1929, the session was organized in Lahore, and the president was Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay, Motilal Nehru and Jawaharlal Nehru. So at this time, Jawaharlal Nehru was the president. And Jawaharlal Nehru was someone who was even more radical, like in comparison, in opinion of Britishers, the demand of Indians, that is immediate dominion status, is just too much. But in the mind of Indians, that was nothing. Because people like Jawaharlal Nehru, who was still the youth leaders. Okay, at this time Jawaharlal Nehru was 40 years old. Okay, Subhash Chandra Bose and Jawaharlal Nehru have come together in our immediate aftermath of the Calcutta session in 1928 and have rejected the dominion status demand, and they have started demanding there only that we want Purna Swaraj, total independence. And you will see then when he became the president, Jawaharlal Nehru went on to put this thing, Purna Swaraj, total independence, in the resolution. And he said that not only we are no more interested in dominion status, but we want Purna Swaraj, and therefore we will hand over the decision making right to Gandhi ji. That Gandhi ji will start a movement whose objective will be Purna Swaraj. Student also get confused in this. That is civil disobedience movement. The objective of civil disobedience movement was Purna Swaraj, not dominion status. Always remember this. We have discussed this thing in past lectures, that non-cooperation movement. Okay. The objective, if someone asks you that in a single word or in a single statement, explain me, tell me, what is the objective of non-cooperation movement? What you will tell them? You will tell them that Swaraj Varaj kuch tha. And you will be right. Swaraj Varaj kuch hi tha. Because at that time in 1921, even Congress was not very clear that what actually Swaraj comprises of. Okay. But at this time, not only Congress and Gandhi ji, but everyone was clear that not only we want Swaraj, but we want Purna Swaraj. And what actually Purna Swaraj means? So it means total independence. Okay. So that thing you have to keep in mind. Fine. So it was decided that they want Purna Swaraj. The Lahore session of Congress happened in December 1929, and it was decided that the flag was hoisted on the Ravi River on 31st of December 1929, and it was declared that first Sunday of next month, oh sorry, last Sunday of next month will be celebrated as Independence Day, and that is what the day was, 26th of January 1930, and from that day till 1949, 26th January was celebrated as the Independence Day, and 1950 it was then changed in 1946 actually, till 1946 it was celebrated as the Independence Day, and in 1950 then it was changed to Republic Day when Constitution was applied. So that's the one section you have to know. Fine. Now let's come to the second section, which you know with the prelims perspective, very important. That ultimately it all started here, round table conference and all. But yeah, Jinnah Point, Lahore Congress session, okay, Pune Swaraj and Dandi March started. So now Gandhi ji was given the authority. Gandhi ji was given the authority that he can decide what has to be done. Gandhi ji immediately went back to his ashram in Sabarmati. Everyone gathered there. Now Gandhi ji had to take a decision. So Gandhi ji, when he got the Congress Working Committee meeting took place in Sabarmati in Gujarat, Gandhi ji said that okay, we want to organize the civil disobedience. Because remember this thing, that in 1922 Gandhi ji was going to organize civil disobedience movement, but before it could have been started, the Chauri Chaura incident had happened, and we have discussed this in last lecture itself. So this time Gandhi ji said that we will start with civil disobedience, but how should we start it? Because civil disobedience means doing something which is beyond the legal system. It could be anything. If I tell people that Gandhiji would have told people do civil disobedience, people would have started killing the Britishers. But that is not the way of the Gandhiji. Gandhiji wanted to be non-violent also, and at the same time he wanted to make sure that civil disobedience is happening. So some law has to be broken. So Gandhiji decided that there is a law, Salt Act of 1882, and this has to be mugged up, remembered. Okay, Salt Act of 1882, which has given the British government monopoly on the salt making right throughout the British India, and only those people are allowed to make salts for industrial purpose, for any purpose, who have a license from the British government. Okay, they have the license from the British government. So what happened now? He decided that if I tell people to break this Salt Act, भाई नमक बनाने से कोई मरेगा तो है नहीं, no one is going to die in making process, in salt making process, but we will be breaking the law. And since salt is something which almost 99.99% people in India use in their food, so almost everyone is also connected to it, and therefore he selected this action. Okay, he decided that he will march from Sabarmati to Dandi on the coastline in Gujarat and will make salt. So he actually walked for these 200 miles. Okay, it is also needed to be understand that before he started this, he actually sent a 11-point demand to Lord Irwin again, and he said that we will start civil disobedience, but you have a last chance of stopping Congress from starting this. And he said that you fulfill these 11 demands and we will do it. What 11 demands? He said At this point, he didn't ask for dominion status, or at this point, he didn't ask for Purna Swaraj also. At this point, he only said that look, because understand this is 1930, 1921 saw the global depression. Might have read in world history a bit of this in your initial, when you must have gone through your foundation batch, you might have heard about that 1929 was one of the most disastrous phase for the global economy. The world saw global recession, okay, the Great Depression of 1929 to 1932. So at this time, in 1930, the impact of global depression was also visible in India. Price rise was happening, people didn't have job, okay. So Gandhiji said that you do few of the things. He said that look, you reduce the expenditure of government of India on bureaucracy and armed forces by 50%. Then he said that introduce total prohibition on intoxicants, alcohol पूरी तरह से बंद कर दो. Then he said that ये CID बहुत परेशान करती है लोगों को. So you basically take action, carry on reform in the criminal investigation department, that is the CID. He also said that you bring changes in the Arms Act, okay, or firearm licenses. People should be getting firearm licenses more easily. He also said that all the political prisoners who are in jail, they should be released. Okay. He also said that a huge demand at the time of the Indian people, these are small demands. So he actually went to this level. He said you just stamp duty, stamp paper ka price ghata do. And believe me, he actually stated that you reduce the demand or reduce the price of stamp, okay, postal stamp. Stamp paper, sorry, stamp tickets, postal stamp ka price ghata do, because there are people living all around India who find it difficult or very costly to send letters back their home. So postal stamp ka daam ghata do, uski prices ghata do, okay. Textile protection introduce kar do, so that Indian textile industries can be saved, okay. Those finished products who are coming, we have discussed again in the past lecture about what? About India being used as a source of raw material, all the cotton being exported from India and all the finished textile products are being imported. So he said that protected environment should be given to Indian industries so that they can also produce textile products in India. So that should be given. Land revenue demand 50% से कम कर दो. And ये जो last सबसे छोटी demand, ये जो salt act है इसको भी हटा दो. In total there were 11 demands and these are very small demands. These are he is not even asking for Purna Swaraj. Leave Purna Swaraj. He was not even asking for dominion status. He said you fulfill these demands and ये civil disobedience जो भी बात हो रही है, we will cancel it. But Lord Irwin didn't took him seriously. Lord Irwin was like क्या ही करेंगे, नमक बनाएंगे, नमक बना के क्रांति आ जाएगी. The problem is then when he started walking, people started joining him. Understand this thing. Not only people started joining it, he got a world global publicity for the first time. Global publicity. Okay. Understand this thing. This is very important. This is the first time that Indian national movement for the independence of India was shown on the global platform. Might have heard about CBS, Columbia Broadcasting Services from New York City. They came to India, they actually shot the video and shown it in America also. The Americans also realized for the first time on a wider audience level, oh, inko independence chahiye kya? Okay. In other country of Europe also, there was a myth that Indians are very happy under the rule of Britishers. So that was broken. You will see that this is the very thing, this action, this walk, this 200-mile long walk actually changed the perception of Indian freedom struggle on the international platform. Gandhiji was given the Time Person of the Year for the first time in 1930 after this only. And that is the importance, essentiality of this whole thing. So anyway, for the prelims purposes, you need to know this, okay, the 11-point demand of Gandhiji, which I've just told you. You also need to know that the Salt Act of 1882. And beyond this, you need to know that after he made salt in Dandi, he was arrested. But the process started, and all around India, small Congress leaders in small jathas started going in and making salt all around India. And now the government was forced to arrest everyone. Kitne logon ko pakdoge? And that was the intention. Okay. So this whole thing was again civil disobedience, but in a non-violent manner. Again, this is something you need to know, that for example, in Northwest Frontier Province, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan and Khan Abdul Jabbar Khan, the two brothers who went on to form the Red Shirts, okay, they were leading the protest, the non-violent means and salt making thing. In Northeast, you will see they were also active people, okay. In Bombay Presidency, people like Jamna Lal Bajaj, S.K. Patil, K.F. Nariman, okay, Y.M. Ali, Yusuf Meher Ali, these were the leaders. These names have to be mentioned. These names can be asked in the examination. In the previous year papers, the question has been asked that which among the following leaders were leading the civil disobedience movement in Madras Presidency. So that's why the name of other presidencies, leaders in other presidencies, has to be remembered for prelims purposes. Now in Gujarat, you will see in Anand Taluka, Nandiad Taluka, Kheda district, okay, lot of action was seen, okay, a lot of people, common people started coming out. In Sindh also, not much happened, but here also a few things happened. Maharashtra, okay, so lot of people start coming on the ground. In Tamil Nadu, for example, C. Rajgopalachari, okay, Chakravarti Rajgopalachari, who was later on called as Rajaji, who also became the Prime Minister of Madras Presidency in 1937, and then also became the first Indian Viceroy or first Indian Governor General of India after Mountbatten went back in February 1948. C. Rajgopalachari was the one who was leading the civil disobedience movement in Madras, and this has been asked in the examination. In Kerala and Travancore, both K. Kalappan, okay, was the main leader, okay. P.K. Pillai was also the leader. P.K. Pillai although belonged to the Communist Party of India, but he was active in civil disobedience movement, although, okay. So similarly, we'll see in Odisha, Gopal Bandhu Chaudhary was the main leader, okay. In Assam, you will see Tarun Ram Phukan and N.C. Badaloi, okay, they were the main leader. Bengal, not much has happened in civil disobedience movement. You have to remember this thing. This comes again and again. What was happening in in Bengal during the civil disobedience movement? You have to remember this thing. Not much was going on in Bengal. Now, why not much was going on in Bengal? That also you need to understand. Not much was going on in Bengal because Congress leadership in Bengal was going through a phase of inner fighting. Fine. After the demise of C.R. Das, the Congress leadership in Bengal was actually undergoing a fight, an internal fight, and you will see that not much participation of the Bengal leaders in civil disobedience movement, even including Subhash Chandra Bose. Fine. In Punjab, you will see that the Rowlatt Satyagraha Khilafat SGPC issue was actually leading the things, and Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhan Committee Act, SGPC Act, which was formed ultimately by accepted by British government only in 1925, but still all the problems were not resolved. So you will see that leaders like Khadak Singh were kept aloof, but Congress became active in this period. Now, when the civil disobedience movement was going on, this was also the time when the main cases, the Lahore conspiracy case, as well as the Central Legislative Assembly bombing case, in which the HSRA members Sukhdev Thapar and Bhagat Singh, both from Punjab, were involved, okay, and the case was going on. So a very high tempered nature was going on, or things were happening in Punjab province. That you have to keep in mind, okay. Now Khudai Khidmatgar, I told you that they were active in Northwest Frontier Province, that is the organization Khudai Khidmatgar, which was led by Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan and his elder brother Khan Abdul Jabbar Khan. Okay. Bihar, so even it was very interesting. The leader was DN Singh, Deep Narayan Singh. Okay. They even included more things, that not only they were saying that in villages wherever the lake was, they were making salt there only. समुद्र है नहीं है हमारे पास ओशन हम यही लेक पे ही बना देंगे. Fine. They even went a step further. They were said that okay, in villages chowkidari tax was collected. Okay, so they were like, we will pay no chowkidari tax. Okay, so in Bihar the thing went even beyond. In UP, which was back then called as United Province, you will see that a huge section in UP which has participated in the non-cooperation movement was from the Awadh region in the western Uttar Pradesh, now we call western United Provinces back then, Muradabad and nearby region, Deoband, Muradabad. They were very active, in the non-cooperation movement, and this was Muslim community. So in this time, you will see, although the participation of the Muslim community was totally lacking. Okay, one of the very major sorry, yeah, one of the very major issue of participation of Muslim community in the non-cooperation movement was the simultaneously going Khilafat movement. Okay, by 1930, I have told you that before anything, before civil disobedience movement was even started, there was already outright issues, crisis between Muslim League and Congress, and therefore you see that UP, United Province, being the gad, being the base. So the Muslim support was not there in the Dandi March. Okay, that much is done. In UP, I told you what was the condition. Now after UP, you need to know few important things. Okay, fine. So this was going on in Dandi March. Now this is specifically has to be mentioned, and we'll do the PYQ in a few minutes, and I'll explain you that thing, or I'll show you the PYQ right now itself. That particular question is there. We have to come to this. No, okay, not this one. The people of India agitated against the arrival of Simon Commission. No, the Defense Commission Socialist Party. Yeah, who among the following organized a march Tanjore coast? Yeah, who among the following organized a march on the Tanjore coast to break the salt law? Okay, this is the question which you will know only when you will go through that who exactly led the movement in southern part of India. Okay, so the answer is C. Rajgopalachari. Fine, so just told you. Now, another question which I just saw here that you will be able to do by what we have just discussed. The people of India agitated against the arrival of Simon Commission. Why? Because there was no members in Simon Commission, no Indian member in the Simon Commission. That is the answer. So easily doable. These are going to be the standards of the question. If you have read it well enough, let me tell you this thing. They don't want to mug. They don't want you to mug up stuff beyond a point. Fine. You needed to know that who led the movement in which different part of India. The last question. But this question you saw this thing. Now, yeah, the 1929 session of Indian National Congress is of significance in the history of freedom movement because attainment of self-government was declared as the objective of Congress. Attainment of Purna Swaraj was adopted as the goal of the Congress. Non-cooperation movement was launched. Decision to participate in the roundtable conference in London was taken. This is the answer. We have just discussed it few minutes back. This was asked in 2014. Okay. So if you will see what we have done till now, as per it, not much is needed to be mugged up. If you have heard the story, if you know the chronology of events, you will be more than capable. You will be more than capable to attempt and answer these questions. Let's go back to where we were in the initial phase. We have to do a few more discussions. Okay. So we have to talk about the first roundtable conference and other things. So few minutes back I was telling you about that when you come to roundtable conference, that British government under Ramsay MacDonald decided, okay fine, sabko bula lo, let's conduct this roundtable conference. Okay, but nothing came out of this conference. Nothing was going to be coming out of this conference. Why? Because the biggest stakeholder who was the biggest stakeholder here? Indian National Congress had boycotted this whole endeavor. So it was bound to fail. So first of all, you know this, that the outcome of first roundtable conference was abrupt and none. Although there are few things which were decided in the first roundtable conference and you are expected to remember them. And that is written here, that when it comes to basic understanding, that is India should be formed in a federal manner. that understanding was reached. During the proceedings of the first roundtable conference, Liberal Party leader Tej Bahadur Sastru of India gave the idea of an all India federation, and this idea was accepted also by everyone. The problem came in the subcommittee of minority, because what power has to be there for the minorities? Okay, who will be held responsible for the minority rights? Okay, that problem, and you can see this is somewhere reaching to the same issue of the Nehru Commission. That problem was not resolved, and that's why this roundtable conference had to be abruptly end. There were a few other things that like Gandhi rejected it, though Congress rejected it. It was anyway done. So roundtable conference was going on in London. Meanwhile, India was going through the phase of civil disobedience. And one more thing which people forget is the Sikh demand. So understand this thing, that just like the Muslim community, Muslims were in majority in Punjab. So they were demanding Muslim majority seats in the Provincial Legislative Assembly of Punjab. But the Sikh community was also not far away. At that time, right now in Indian part of Punjab, the Indian state of Punjab, you will have a 54 point something percent of Sikh population. But back in that day, when the size of Punjab was far bigger, the whole of Pakistan, the whole of Punjab province of Pakistan was also connected, as well as Himachal Pradesh and Haryana was also part of that very state. Then the Sikh population of Punjab was a mere 11%. But the Sikh community gave this argument that we have been the erstwhile rulers, and because of that our stakeholdership is much more than the rest of them, and therefore they demanded that we should be getting 30% reservation in the Provincial Legislative Assembly. अब कहाँ मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी इज नॉट गेटिंग एक्सेप्टेड कि अच्छा आपकी जितनी परसेंटेज है उतना नहीं देंगे बिकॉज मेजॉरिटी, एंड दीज पीपल आर आस्किंग कि हमारा 11% हमको 30% चाहिए. So that was also the reason of rejection. So the first round table conference failed. Okay, but these were like, okay, these things do fail. Muslim League leaders do participated in this. Provincial, like for example, Ambedkar participated in this. Even Justice Party participated in this first roundtable Congress. First roundtable conference. Congress never participated in the first roundtable conference. What happened? What is interesting here is immediately afterwards, when the British government was like, okay, fine, why this first roundtable conference failed? They understood that the reason for failure of first roundtable conference has nothing to do with the Sikh issue or that minority issue. They understood that the main reason is the most important player, the most important stakeholder is not even participating. So it is bound to fail. There is no other way. So Irwin was given a diktat again, and he was told that no matter what, you bring Congress to the talking terms. He was dispatched back to Delhi. He came here. What needs to be done? So all the senior Congress leaders at this time were in jail. So Gandhi ji was first of all released from the jail, and then by this time, this is 1931. The movement started, non-civil disobedience movement, in 1930. So already it almost a year. So Congress leadership, Congress workers were also now getting a bit depressed because they have been continuously in jail for so long. So it is now that 8 round of talks takes place, okay, between Mahatma Gandhi and Lord Irwin. These are called as Gandhi-Irwin talk, and the result of this was the Gandhi-Irwin Pact, which happened in March 1931. It was the Gandhi-Irwin Pact which made sure that Gandhiji decided that civil disobedience movement will be suspended. Congress will participate in the second round table conference whenever it will be organized, and in return Lord Irwin declared that all the political prisoners who are not involved in violent activities, understand this thing, all the political prisoners who are not involved in violent activities will be released from the jail, and all the properties which have been seized by the British government related to anyone who was a political prisoner and hasn't yet been sold out to a third party will also be returned. Fine. It was decided. These were the terms of Gandhi-Irwin Pact. These were basic idea. Okay. Now, Gandhi, you need to understand that during the Gandhi-Irwin Pact, Gandhiji accepted 3 axioms of governance. That is, India should be made into a federation. So even before going for second roundtable conference, Gandhiji has accepted that if India becomes a federation, that is not an issue. Okay, good, because rest of the people have already accepted that. Now, he also accepted that Indians also have responsibility, because अब हम तो ये कह रहे थे कि भाई हम अपना कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन खुद बना लेंगे, but he was like, okay, Indian responsibility is there, India has a shared responsibility. Okay, and Gandhiji even accepted to the extent that safeguards in the form of reservation for the minority community should be there. Okay, this is usually not mentioned in your books. Please write it down. The 3 axioms of governance. 3 axioms of governance accepted by Gandhiji. In Gandhi-Irwin Pact. Number 1, please note it down. Number 1, India should be made into a federation, and there is an Indian responsibility. Yeah. Number 3, federation, Indian responsibility, and number 3 is the reservation or safeguard for the minorities. Minority in the form of reservation. So he accepted these things before even going to the round table conference. So the expectation, the hope was कि अब तो problem solve हो जाएगी, because if he has accepted reservation, वो सब कमिटी minority सब कमिटी वाला issue भी resolve हो जाएगा. He has already accepted federation, so that is the first thing. Everyone else has already accepted. तेज बहादुर सप्रू का recommendation था, so problem will be solved. Okay. Now you need to understand one more thing happened here, and this is again and again in part of the news, so you never know that this might be asked in the examination. But the saying that Gandhiji didn't got the 3 boys of ours, Bhagat Singh and Chandrasekhar Azad and Rajguru, okay, got out of Shivram Rajguru out of the prison, and they were executed. Now the problem here you need to understand here is, okay, this is very important, you have to understand this part, that Gandhiji himself stated again and again that he is a practitioner of non-violence, and the act these people were involved in was not some political act or not something else. This was actually an act of killing someone. Okay, that is the Saunders murder case. Anyway, the 3 people were, because in the parliament or the central legislative assembly bombing, they were only given the life imprisonment, not the execution. But in the Saunders murder case, that is the Lahore conspiracy case, these people were given the order to life, hang till death. And you need to understand that it is said that the understanding in the Gandhi-Irwin Pact was that all the political prisoners who have not been involved in the act of violence, these 3 people were involved in act of violence. And even after again and again mentioning of Gandhiji, Lord Irwin explained to him that, look, you are putting pressure on me, but I am also under pressure from the British press, who were not ready to let it go, because for them Saunders was also a 22-year-old Imperial Police Service officer who had just got his first posting, and the Punjab Police Department has told to the Lord Irwin that if you're gonna remit the order, the punishment of these 3 boys, okay, the senior officers of Punjab Police Services will resign. So he was not in a position to do anything like that. Fine. Sure. So this problem is solved. No one is going to ask, I can assure you about this one, but ठीक है. Anyway, you are expected to remember this. ठीक है, discussion में चल जाता है. चलो. So now this was the Gandhi-Irwin Pact, and subsequently Gandhi ji went for the second roundtable conference. So second roundtable conference started. Nothing much happened in second roundtable conference because the first day or second day Gandhi ji reached there. Immediately, these are the details of Gandhi-Irwin Pact. This will be given to you. I've already explained it, so no worries. Okay. You need to understand what next is the Karachi session of Congress and then roundtable conference. So let me explain you first the Karachi session of the Congress. So immediately after this Gandhi-Irwin Pact in March 1931, a special session of Congress was called in Karachi. Okay, one of the most important trading towns. Between March 26 and March 31, 1931, within 20 days, the Karachi session of Congress was organized, and in this session, the mandate was given in hands of Gandhi ji to decide on the behalf of whole of Congress single-handedly. Gandhi ji was made the single and sole representative of Congress in the second roundtable conference. Now, understand this part. Gandhi ji, whenever you will read a chota book, any standard book, okay, you will see that it is written that the Indian representative in the second roundtable conference were Gandhi ji, Mahatma Gandhi and Madan Mohan Malviya. Okay, you will always read 2 names are there, Gandhi ji, Mahatma Gandhi, Gandhi and Madan Mohan Malviya. Now understand this thing. The power to represent Congress was only in the hands of Mahatma Gandhi, not Madan Mohan Malviya. Madan Mohan Malviya was a tag-in. Madan Mohan Malviya was someone who was taken along by the Gandhi ji. Okay? He was not a selected candidate to represent Congress. Okay, that you have to know. Now, beyond this, in the Karachi session is also known for the economic policy of the Congress. I have already told you the Great Depression had impacted, and because of the impact of the Great Depression, you will see that economic policy has to be dwelled, has to be informed to people, as well as pressure has to be put by the Congress on the government to take some initiative to reduce the economic devastation which was going on in India because of the global concerns. Okay, and you will see that at this time Congress resolution or Karachi resolution played a very important role. Karachi resolution gave a list of initiative. Karachi resolution gave a list of initiatives which are needed to be mugged up. Please remember this. Please remember, try to remember the Karachi resolution. Okay, so they accepted the idea of fundamental rights, which was already there in the Nehru report. They also for the very first time came up with the economic policy, which were present in party's social, economic and political program. Okay, this point I have explained. What they stated, they in this Karachi resolution, they passed these things, that civil right of freedom of speech, okay, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, equality before law, election on the basis of universal federal adult franchise, okay, free and compulsory primary education, sustained reduction in rent and taxes. This is in line with the economic thing. Better conditions for workers, including a living wage, limited hour of work, that is 8 hours, was not defined yet by Congress but already mentioned in the Factories Act. Protection of women and peasants, government ownership and control of key industries, mines and transport. It was a pretty arguably worded protections of minorities. Okay, so these points were placed in Karachi resolution itself, and so Karachi resolution not only gave the right to Gandhi ji becoming the representative of Congress, but other issues also. Now, when this was going on, then only Lord Irwin was called back, in that after the whole Gandhi-Irwin Pact. If you want to know, I'll tell you why he was called back. He was called back for a very specific reason. He was called back for a very specific reason, and the specific reason was a lot of senior officials in India, British officials, has started complaining against Irwin, and they stated that look, Irwin has been too sympathetic towards the Indian cause. Believe me, that was the reason Irwin was called back. A new viceroy, Lord Wellington, was sent to India in April 1931. Gandhiji meanwhile went to Round Table Conference, and immediately when he went there, issue started appearing. What was the issue? Gandhiji went there and Gandhiji said that Congress is the representative of all Indian people. Now the other party were of the opinion that bhaiya, Congress is not the representative of all Indian people, because if Congress is the representative of all Indian people as a single go, why the hell we are even here? So Muslim League said that Congress is the representative of the Hindu people. Ambedkar said that no, Congress is the representative of only the Hindu upper caste people. Justice Party said that no, Congress is the representative of only Hindu upper caste people from North India, not the South India. Okay. So, and then Gandhi said, no, Congress is the representative of all the Indian people. So the parties were not able to reach a consensus that whom actually they are representing. And the talks broke down there itself. All the three axioms of government and this governance and this and that which have been signed were of no use, and the talks cancelled. Fine. Now under these circumstances, what will happen? So under these circumstances, you will see, wait a moment. Yeah, Gandhi took along under these circumstances. The main problem was of the minorities. Okay, rest everything was already decided in the first roundtable conference itself. The main issue was that how the candidature, how the representation in the legislation has to be given for minorities. That was the main reason. So Ramsay MacDonald stated that look, you people are not able to come to reach any understanding. So under these circumstances, we have to take certain steps, and he went there. Gandhiji also came back. The Gandhiji, when he came back, remember initially when he was going for the second roundtable conference, he didn't ended the civil disobedience movement. You must be remembering this thing that in 1922, I told you of the 5th of February 1922, when Chauri Chaura incident happened, Gandhiji has called back the non-cooperation movement. But in 1931, March 1931, after Gandhi-Irwin Pact, Gandhiji has suspended civil disobedience movement. Neither he had called back, neither he had ended the civil disobedience movement. He had just mere suspended. और suspend किए हुए तो इंसान को भी वापस बुला लिया जाता है. So when Gandhiji came back and he saw that no outcome is going to come, okay, so he reenacted that thing and he called that okay, the civil disobedience movement has to be restarted. When he declared that, he was immediately arrested, and other Congress leaders were arrested too in 1932. Fine. Acha. In the meanwhile, you also need to know then when Gandhiji and the leaders were arrested, okay, Gandhi returned, restarted the suspended civil disobedience movement, which lasted till 1934. In the meantime, Ramsay MacDonald established a new committee called as the Lothian Committee. I don't know whether it's there in your notes or not. Please note it down. He formed this committee, and the mandate of the Lothian Committee was to look into all the minorities, religious minority, linguistic minority, regional minority, caste minority, all the minorities, and look that who deserves to have separate electorate. And Lothian Committee went to an extent beyond. They started giving everyone separate electorates. Initially the issue was कि अरे Muslims को मिल गया and उसके बाद Sikhs को मिल गया था. Now Lothian Committee was recommending communal awards, that is basically separate electorates, was now available for two Muslims, Buddhists, Sikh, Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians, Europeans, depressed classes. The principle of weightage was also applied. Akali Dal was critical of the award since 19% was reserved to the Sikh in the Punjab, as opposed to 51% reservation to Muslims and 30% to the Hindus. I told you that Punjab. So what Britishers were doing, they were making the Indian provinces much more powerful, but at the same time they were reducing the power of the Indian center or the Indian Union government. What is this going to do? It was going to create a difficult situation for any party, any faction who are planning to take India as a union. So Congress didn't like it, and Congress criticized it outrightly. But anyway, this has to be passed by them, so they passed it. Beyond that, Lothian Commission thing we have discussed already, so no issues with that. So Government of India Act 1935 we have discussed. Okay. Now the important thing which we need to go through is basically something which we have left. That is the elections of 1934. Now the thing is that if Indian general elections of 1934. Now this is very important, people. The Indian elections or should have happened. One will say, sir, 1935 there was a new Government of India Act. So why the elections took place in 1934? So the elections were mandated to be there in 1934. And since Congress was already the Congress leaders have just came out of jail in 1934, because this was also the time when the civil disobedience movement was called back. When the civil disobedience movement was called back. So under these circumstances, it was decided that elections should be conducted. So British government or the then Viceroy in India, Lord Wellington, declared that 1934 there will be a general election in India, central legislative elections in India. Fine, that you have to remember. Now after that, Congress was, and this is something very important for you people, remember this, in 1885, when Congress was formed, what was Congress? And I have told you this while discussing in the initial stages. I was telling you about the formation of Congress, that if someone asks you the etymological meaning of Congress, what the word stands for, you will tell that, sir, Congress is basically a shortened form of congregation. And that is what it was. When initially Congress was formed, it was an annual congregation, which then expanded and expanded and expanded, and in 1920 you will see a Congress working committee was formed for the very first time for day-to-day working of Congress. Otherwise it was just an annual meeting. Okay, a mandate was passed that what everyone has to do through the resolution, and everyone was sent back, jao apne apne ghar jaake karo. But 1920 a Congress working committee was formed, CWC, which is even now Congress party has a CWC. But Congress was still not a electoral party. Remember, in 1923 when elections happened, the Swarajists participated. Swarajists were part of Congress, but they were not the Congress. Okay, so Congress was not an electoral outfit till 1934. Even Gandhi ji, when he stated in the second roundtable conference that we are the representative of all the Indian people, he said it so because he said that हम electoral party तो है नहीं. So हम तो ऐसा तो नहीं है कि हम contest करके जीत के आए हैं तो हमारा representation भी नहीं है. We are the representative of all the Indian people. You will see here that this will be a very important time. Now C. Rajgopalachari, and this I have told you, Gopalachari, who was a leader of the No Changers faction, and this we have discussed in past lectures, that who were all part of the No Changers faction and who were part of the Swarajist faction. So the one who was part of No Changes faction, C. Rajgopalachari, now changed his stance. He approached Gandhi ji, who has just came out of the jail in 1934, and told him that one need to understand this thing, that in non-cooperation movement, ultimately we have not been able to achieve what the objective was. In civil disobedience movement, again we were not able to achieve what the objective was. So the reputation of Congress is actually going down among the population. And therefore, it could be a good opportunity for Congress that if they participate in the elections and they win, then they might regain the support of general public at large. Now, till this point, Gandhiji was not ready, but at this point, Gandhiji said, okay, fine. So you will see that first of all, what Gandhiji will do in 1934. he will resign in 1934 from his primary membership of the Congress, because he has declared he is the leader of Indian people. He is not the leader of any electoral party. So he will resign from the primary membership of Congress in 1934, and then Congress went on to participate in the general election of 1934, which took place as per the mandate of Government of India Act 1919. Fine. So, and we have discussed in the past lectures that Government of India Act 1919 had mandated that this was a there were 104 seats were open for elections. Okay, and you will see that how many of them, 42 were won by the Indian National Congress, 41 were the independents. Okay, 12 Congress Nationalist Party, Malviya and Ane, that was a bit right-wing faction within the fold of Congress, and the 9 European seats. Most of the 30 Muslim constituencies elected independent to the council, but within the council, leadership of independent Muslims were in the hands of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. So this is why very important. If you see, this is the mapping of the representation of different factions in the Central Legislative Assembly, and you will see that Congress has a mass chunk of population, and if they came along with the independent, okay, their number was huge. But still, one thing very important, Muslim League on its own didn't want any or much amount of seats. They want no seats. All the seats which were reserved under separate electorates for Muslims, okay, as per the Government of India Act 1919, also went to the independent Muslim candidates. Usually they were big jamidars who contested and all. But when these people landed up in the Central Legislative Assembly, they understood that no one else than Muhammad Ali Jinnah is capable of giving them representation. So you will see that all these people who are not part of Muslim League, when they entered Central Legislative Assembly, they decided that inside the Central Legislative Assembly, they will do exactly what Jinnah is saying. So just like Congress leadership was in hands of Gandhiji, Jinnah's, the Muslim leadership, to most of the extent, elected Muslim leadership or independent, also went into the hand of Jinnah. Although Muslim League not at all performed in this election. Muslim League not at all performed in this election. You have to know this. After this, what happened? So I told you the Government of India Act 1935 was passed. Fine, Government of India Act 1935 was passed. And it was decided that elections will take place as per it in 1937. But before that, in 1936, one more important thing happened, that is the Fazpur Agrarian Program, 1936. So Fazpur, a Congress session was organized in Fazpur. National Congress held in 27th and 28th of December 1936 in Fazpur. Where is Fazpur? Anyone? You might have heard about Jalgaon, Jalgaon district of Maharashtra. Gaon, okay, Jalgaon, Jalgaon district of Maharashtra. Jalgaon district of Maharashtra. Fine. So you will see that the meeting happened in Fazpur, and in this Fazpur meeting, certain recommendations were made. Okay, what were these? Congress declared here that whenever they will get an opportunity to come in power, they will do what? They will reduce the rent and revenue demand by 50%. They also said that exemptions from an economic holding from rent and land taxation on agricultural income, and abolition of feudal levies and forced labor. They stated further that cooperative farming, wiping out of areas of the rent, modification of ejection law, that is famously called as Bedakhli. You have been in North India, you might have heard about in the villages, if you don't pay your revenue, your tax demand on time, आपको बेदखल कर दिया जाएगा properties से. That things comes from the British time. That things is a remnants of permanent settlement of 1793. So that Bedakhli thing, Congress said that they will handle, no one will be bedakhaled from their property. And they also recognized the Kisan Sabha, the peasant union. This is the time when it was decided, Congress said that whenever they will be, for them it will be possible, they will stop taxing agriculture. Even now in 21st century India, there is no tax on agriculture. No tax is on agriculture. Agriculture पे कोई tax नहीं लगता है अभी भी. Why it is so? It is because in 1947, when Congress formally formed the government, they followed on the Fazpur program and they followed on this statement. Now, it is said that in 1937, when Congress finally went to the election, this helped them a lot. This helped them beyond doubt, because when they were participating in the electoral process, the major charm in support of Congress was, Congress को वोट दो, economic relaxation. हम पूरी कहानी घूम के हम कहां से आ गए? We have started our discussion in the initial phases that before political upliftment, Indian people were demanding for economic upliftment. All the initial struggle against the colonial empire was started from the economic sense, and here we are seeing in 1936, 1937, for political unionization, what Congress is using? Economic benefits which can be assured to the Indian people. So now 1937 elections will take place. Okay, now 1937 elections will take place. You will see Indian provincial election 1937. So election took place in 11 provinces in total. Okay, election took place in 11 provinces in total, namely Madras Central Province, Bihar, Odisha, United Provinces, Bombay Presidency, Assam, Northwest Frontier Province, Bengal, Punjab and Sindh. 30 million people, okay, had franchise right. That was about 16% of the Indian population as per the listing. Okay, as per 16% population had the voting right. You will see that 30 million people, 16%. Congress won 711 seats out of 758 out of around 1585 seats. These are two different figures, you don't have to remember. Some book says that Congress won 711 seats, some says 758 seats. The exact number of seats in whole of India, the legislative seats, the provincial legislative seats, is also not clear. But in a way you can understand that almost 700 plus seats have been won by out of 1500 seats. So somewhere around 45 to 46% of the seats were given in favor of Congress. And out of the 11, in 6 provinces, Congress was able to make their government. Okay. And it had the long-term impact, immediate as well as the long-term impact of this Congress formation. The immediate impact, and this is also already something you must have read, but for the prelims purposes, you don't have to mug it up, but you should know this much at least, that Congress led a lot of reforms in provinces like Madras Presidency. You will see that temple entry movement was never able to succeed in 1934. It was only in 1937 when C. Rajgopalachari formed a Congress-led government in Madras Presidency that temple entry was allowed for the depressed classes. Similarly, Bedakhli was entered. Similarly, a lot of changes were made in Bihar and United Provinces also, that is UP. But these were not enough. The people wanted more reforms, and on certain issues that was not done. Okay. There was also a thing when the Congress was going for elections, they were stating that we are just participating in the election to show the Britishers the might of Congress. They were not sure that whether they are going to take ministership or not. But they not only took ministership, they became ministers, and it is said that a lot of time, a lot of corruption was also seen being practiced by a few members of the Congress. This was immediately shown. In the long term, it is said that it was only after Congress governments were formed in 1937 that the religious divide was visible for the very first time. Now, Muslim League after 1937 election started saying that the ground workers of the Congress are creating life difficult, making life difficult for the Muslim community in places like Bihar, in places like United Province, where the majority population is Hindu. Congress not only rejected it, so Muslim League came up with 2 reports, and this name of these reports here you have to remember. The Pirpur Committee Report, and Sharif Committee Report. Pirpur Committee Report focused on 6 provinces. Okay, it was led by Nawab of Pirpur, and Sharif Committee Report focused only on 1938 riots in Bhagalpur, Bihar. Now, Congress after these 2 reports said that we can do one thing. Congress said that we should call the Chief Justice who was there at that time in the federal court in India. Okay, the senior most judge who was there is a British officer. So they said that we should call him, he will be a neutral adjudicator, and we should tell him that a committee should be formed under the leadership or under the guidance of the Chief Justice, and let them inquire, and if Congress people have done something, they should be punished. Muslim League rejected this offer, and Muslim League went on to continue their propaganda after this, that Congress has done unspeakable wrong with the Muslim community in the 6 provinces where they have government. This worked in favor of Muslim League, not only in those 6 provinces, because वहां तो लोगों को पता था कि So what happened is very interesting here now. Understand that in Punjab, the government was of Unionist Party under the leadership of Sikandar Hayat Khan, who himself was a Muslim, but he was leading a party which was secular in character. The second in command, Sikandar Hayat Khan, okay, the second in command of his was Sir Chotu Ram. Okay, so it was a secular party, it had both Hindus and Muslims, and they were in power in Punjab. But the influence of the propaganda created by Muslim League in this period impacted Punjab a lot, and it is said, along with few other agreements which Muhammad Ali Jinnah formed with Sikandar Hayat Khan, that is called as Jinnah-Sikandar Pact or Sikandar-Jinnah Pact, this was one of the reason for increasing influence, in Punjab. Fine. Now what next? What next is, you need to know, is conditional acceptance. We have discussed that the Congress has accepted the office, and the long term impact was the religious differences also increased. Fine. Now what you need to know here is, during Congress was in government, there was a Vardha education system. Okay, Vardha education system. So basically, how should I explain Vardha education system to you is this. We have discussed about Sabarmati Ashram. Okay, it was Gandhiji's ashram which was formed in 1920s, 1915 after he returned. So in 1930, Gandhiji has taken a vow that he will not return to Sabarmati unless and until he has got Purna Swaraj when he started the Dandi March. Now obviously he was not able to attain Purna Swaraj. So under that circumstances, what happened? Under that circumstances, he never returned to Sabarmati, and he went to where? Wardha. Where was Wardha? It was in central province next to Nagpur. Okay, it was in central province next to Nagpur, and it was also an area where a lot of depressed class people were living, and he established a new ashram there. And from there on, most of the political work of Congress was done in Wardha. So in Wardha, in 1937, after the government was established, Gandhiji called everyone, and a meeting of Congress leaders and Gandhiji took place here, and it was the discussion issue was that how and what we should teach our students. So the Vardha education system, in a way, for those people mattered as much as the Macaulay Minute, because for them, they were deciding that what should be taught to Indian people, taught to Indian students, Indian kids, to Indian children. That was the question. Okay, आपके दिमाग में क्या भरना है, ये यहाँ डिस्कस होना था. And Gandhiji came up with few of the standard guardian, you can say they were the guardian outline or the constraints, and he defined that, look, he said that the education has to be given in Hindustani. Hindustani has to be evolved as the national language. Okay, this Hindustani was a language which was prevalently mixed up of a Urdu and Hindi language, and a few words of Tamil was also included in them, but only a few. Then he was that nationwide provision of free and compulsory education was there. Initial education had to be given in mother tongue only. Okay, the conference endorsed Mahatma Gandhi's proposal and decided that a new committee will be formed to form the intricate details, and that was formed under the leadership of Zakir Hussain. Okay, Zakir Hussain committee was formed. Now, Wardha education system decided that free and compulsory education will be given to all the students between the age of 8 and 14. Okay, that thing which government of India was able to ascertain only in 2009 through right to education was something first propounded by Zakir Hussain committee as per the guidelines of Gandhi ji in Wardha education system. It was also stated that craft-centered education has to be done, that not only theoretical information has to be taught to Indian students, but they have also needed to be taught the vocational training, craft-based training. And it was also decided that the schools have to be made economically viable. So it was decided that students will prepare handicrafts products in the school to learn that, and from those learnings only, they will fulfill the requirements of schools. Although that was not viable in the long run, so never really implemented, but that was the initial idea. Now, that is what is Wardha education system, which you are expected to know. Okay. Now, after this, these are the results of the Wardha education system I just told you. Yeah. So if we have done till here, then what we have to do next is we have to understand few of the important things. That is, in total, Congress was in government for 22 months. Okay. And Congress resigned from government in October 1939, because in September 1939, Britishers have declared war on Germany when Germany declared war on Poland. And on 1st of September 1939, on 3rd, British in reaction to that declared war on Germany, and also declared that whole of Commonwealth, including India, is going to participate in the war. Now, what happened after this? What happened after this is very important, because Congress said that so now what happened? Congress resigned from the government. Because they were not taken into consensus before the Britishers declared that India is going to participate in war against Nazi Germany. And this changed everything. From here onward, the phase started between 1939 and 1947. That is going to be the topic of the next class. So we are going to end the lecture here, and in the next lecture, we are going to discuss from the very beginning, and we'll also discuss few of the topics, okay, the PYQs and few other things from this topic in the next lecture itself. Okay, I hope this was understandable to you. Okay, you will be given standard slides for these topics, so you can cover them from here, and let's catch up in the next lecture. Okay, and we'll do few of the MCQs also, and yeah, I hope exams some topics won't go actually beyond these topics. These are more than enough for your examination. Okay, thank you and have a nice day.